break the rules. I am your humble host, Lev Polyakov. Daniel Kirchhoff says, "Come on!" Okay, well, we're coming, and you better get ready because this is going to be one for the ages. I can feel it. The person that we have with us today, Miles Arthur, aka Lord Miles, aka Le Vescount Routledge. So a lot of titleage there, and I think it's appropriate. It's like when parents name their kids Jeeves. That's definitely going to be a butler when they grow up. So I think you empower yourself by choosing the proper name to dictate where you go in life. But anyway, we got my main man Giovanni Pennacchietti in the house, and we're going to get started. So, Lord Miles, for those who don't know, you were in Afghanistan. You were there on the last day of Kabul. I'm going to stop speaking. Miles, go ahead. Tell us about your journey, how you ended up where you ended up.
Yeah, so I casually just popped down to Afghanistan a few days before the collapse of Afghanistan. So when I was in Kabul, I saw the country collapsing in real time from a Western perspective, and shit posted on 4chan about it consistently. It was completely fun. I got to keep this body armor I got given by some special forces, hung out with them, they thought I was cool. Had some good times basically. Always was very happy and jolly. Met the Taliban. They tried to take photos of me. That was interesting too. A few times I interacted with them thinking I was going to die, but thankfully I didn't because now that means I can go back someday. But overall, good stuff.
And when you were there, I guess the question on a lot of people's minds is how much in danger did you feel when all of that was going down?
Oh yeah, I think I did do a post the night before um, Kabul fell. We heard some gunshots, and I basically posted that I was going to shout out the window of them to be quiet if I did hear some gunshots, which I did in the end. I basically shouted them, "I need to sleep, shut up," and the gunshots actually stopped weirdly. So I thought, excellent. So that night felt fine. The next day, the bank runs started happening, so everyone started withdrawing their money. And then we basically started driving away as far as we can, try and get to the airport, loop back around, or to the embassy, sorry. And then when we got to the top of this hill area, we could see over the region. So there's this road that comes into Afghanistan. And then we saw about 5 Taliban trucks, of course, in white Toyotas. And they had AK-47s, machine guns mounted on their car. And they were basically screaming and shooting. So I thought, I was getting shot at that point, and we quickly turned around. I panicked a little bit, but at the same time, I didn't feel scared that I was going to die. I was more kind of this is a mild inconvenience. Some things with the airport too. I met the Taliban, so the airport was the last thing to be ever captured by the Taliban in the country. So as I was walking out the airport, because flights had been frozen, I came across the Taliban. They were in their car, ready to capture this area, and I started walking across the road, Tiananmen Square style. I stopped the car by accident for a solid 5-10 seconds. The guys were smiling and laughing. I had my cross around my neck. I was wearing Western clothes and had a big smile on my face. I didn't really care, but at the same time, they didn't kill me. So I think that was the closest I came to almost dying. A lot of people told me to stay in the airport too, which was I was going to do. And the area I was waiting in originally was actually the area, well, a few meters away that basically got bombed by ISIS. So if I stayed, I think I would have probably been incinerated. Um, the Taliban saw my 4chan post, which I thought was a giant shit post, but it's actually true. So when I when I was being escorted by the Taliban to the safe place with Westerners, they kind of recognized me and they did the soy face. They were like, they were like this guy, you know. And he asked to take a selfie with me. And I looked at the special forces and everything, and I was like, well, I can't exactly turn them down. They might shoot me or something. So I guess so. So somewhere I'm on Taliban TikTok, and thankfully not live. So yeah, I think that was another point where I thought I was going to die, but it was just a harmless selfie. So yeah, that's it basically. All fine.
Which is the picture, by the way? Is it the one where you're with the gun in that in the thumbnail? Is that the picture that they took, or what's the origin of that particular one?
Oh yeah, so I never found the one they took, unfortunately, but the one with me with the body armor, not this one, but a different black one, and an automatic gun. That was the one some special forces took of me. They gave me their equipment whilst drunk, and they thought it'd be hilarious to teach me how to defend myself. Uh, and I was like, yeah, cool, why not? And another time, I was in this area where the Russians, originally during the war, when they were fighting Afghanistan, got halted. So this was, a very historical point. And when I pulled up there, some people pulled up to us with AK-47s. It was the police, basically, the Afghanistan, army, and they put their, guns at me, and they said, "Oh, what are you doing here? Are you spy? Are you journalist? Are you government?" And I go, "Tourist, mate, tourist." And they looked
Yeah,
at me
can't you see the hat?
yeah, exactly. I was like, and they were like, "Tourist?" And I go, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." So in the end, they slowly pull their guns away, and I started talking to them, shit posting in real life, and being friendly and everything. And in the end, they invited me for tea, and they let me climb on their car, which has a turreted machine gun. And that was a photo that I think is the one in my Twitter profile picture. So, yeah, that's what happened. They took a photo with me, and the automatic mounted machine gun didn't have safety on, and it was fully loaded. So I almost basically shot up a village by accident, but didn't happen. No war crimes, thankfully, not this time anyway. So good stuff.
Yeah, there's always Sudan. Speaking of which, I'm curious about. We're going to get into the Sudan as well pretty soon about that unclaimed area. But it is very interesting, though, to have somebody kind of following a Lawrence of Arabia. Who would be a model that you would say, like, this is the person that I want to emulate as far as the kind of life that they lived?
Apart from myself, because I'm a complete narcissist, so I love myself. I'm joking. But I would say
we'll get into that in a little bit.
I would say David Tennant, Doctor Who.
I
love the sense of adventure. I love the enthusiasm. I love the running. It's good stuff.
Absolutely. So I know that while I personally am one of those, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual type of people. I know Gio is, very hard Christian. So Christianity has been something that you were reintroduced to, you could say, from your experience. Would that be the right way to say it? Or tell us a little bit about how you got into Christianity.
Yeah, so one good part is why I went to Afghanistan was because I basically want to do some charity work. And one of the quotes that is often misquoted is, I wrote a list of the top 10 most dangerous countries and wanted to travel there, but it was actually the top 10 most dangerous countries for Christians. So that's why I went to Afghanistan, because I went with a paycheck, basically a ton of money, and started handing out to people as charity. So that's something I did as a Christian over there. So, I obviously, if I go there, just do nothing for people, it's a bit scummy. But the main reason I got into Christianity was because I did become homeless at one point, and no fault of my own, basically. External circumstances beyond my control. I was freshly 18. It was not my fault, basically. But when I was homeless, there was a point where I was going to jump off a building. Not even joking. Very dark time, basically. I was convinced I was going to die. Like, I was convinced it was my last day. And then I passed my A-levels and I wasn't homeless anymore. I got to go to university and so on. So in the end, it did work out, and I kind of thought I should explore this whole faith thing. And eventually I started looking into it, and I was kind of lukewarm. And I was at university, and I was basically inside this girl at one point. And then I basically was like, I don't want to do this anymore. So I just pulled out, and I was like, this feels morally wrong. I don't want to have sex with you anymore. And just walked out of the room, basically. And then the next time I was like, okay, maybe I need to get to know this person. Maybe, there's something wrong with, this society. So I basically got a girlfriend. And then even then, sleeping around felt wrong. So then I dumped her, mid-sex once again. Very awkward time, but, felt right. And she wasn't a great person. So I moved on a little bit, and I started researching, Buddhism. And when I shaved my head, big mistake. And then I started researching Christianity, and I thought, okay, well, Catholicism seems based. Why not? It lines up with all my views already. I'll go talk to one of my friends who's a Catholic, and he invited me to church. And then the story goes on from there, basically. So I gained deeper.
Did you ever have an interest in Islam? Because I know there was a slew of stories in the 2010s.
Gio, your mic. You got to speak louder.
Oh wait, how is my mic?
And
on?
everybody subscribe and keeps needing those super chats.
It's usually going like hardcore.
I'm going to address all the super chats a little bit later in the episode, but keeps needing those super chats. Thank you very much.
But is my mic all right?
Yes, your mic is perfect. Yeah.
Perfect.
No, there was a slew of articles in the 2010s about how British youth are converting to Islam. Was that ever something that you've contemplated, having gone to Afghanistan, or do you feel that it's sort of alien to your culture and to your, your identity and so forth?
Oh, it's completely alien. It's not my thing at all. And as a Catholic, I really don't agree with Islam, and I never really have in the first place. I do think I do respect it to some degree, though, because if you could be very dedicated to it and be a good person from it, I think there's some merit there. I like the I think the strictest Islamic person is probably more Christian than the average atheist, and will probably go to heaven. So that's my belief anyway. But I would never convert. Basically, there was a time where I seriously thought I would have a gun pointed to my head by the Taliban, and if they said, "Oh, mate, convert to Islam or die," I'll just be like, okay, so let's film a live leak then. Just kill me.
Film a live
Jeez. Oh man.
Oh.
Oh man. Can't you do like taqiyya? You know how the Shiite Muslims do taqiyya? Because we were told by Os Sultan, who a friend of the show, that taqiyya is only for Shiite Muslims and Sunnis don't have that. But I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. Yeah.
But anyway, when you were in Afghanistan and you noticed the people who were living the kind of life that they were living there, would you say they are like, let's say, this more traditional admiring part of Twitter likes to think that a lot of places in the quote-unquote third world, whatever you want to call it, that the people there are closer to the earth, that they're more based, that they're more red-pilled maybe too, I don't know. But yes.
Very much.
So lay it down for us. How exactly would you qualify that in the people there? And also the people who are watching, tell me if my lips match up to the audio or not, because I'm going to be tweaking my my camera audio stuff. But anyway, go for it, Miles.
Absolutely, yes. So we were at this one specific area doing some charity work, and I was speaking English to my tour guide. And then we have a group of like 20-something-year-old men come up to us, and there's about 4 or 5 of them, and he basically starts speaking Dari to my tour guide, and then he's speaking English to me, translating it. They basically said, "Dirty foreigner, don't dirty our land with your language." And I was just laughing my ass off. I was like, well, relatable. But they were insanely based, and I was like, I kind of respect, that until they pulled a knife on us. But then, we talked out of it and we just shook their hands. So, they basically threatened to stab us for speaking English in their country. They don't like foreigners, which I don't know. I think that's kind of based to some degree. I kind of respect it. Like,
well, they had all that. They had all that experience with the Soviets coming in and the Americans coming in, so it makes sense why, let's say, more tribal societies want to be like that. But at the same time, though, if you were to imagine, I don't even think you have to imagine certain parts in England, because you would say that there is multiculturalism, whatever you want to call it, that there is this aspect of people who are from areas like that moving into England, and there being a certain amount of culture clash. Like, maybe certain parts of it are a bit blown up, but at the same time there was that whole story, I'm sure you remember, about Rotherham, England. There was that whole, the grooming gang scandal. So when it comes to that kind of culture clash, do you notice that there was a difference in the kind of culture that you were exposed to in Afghanistan versus the culture that you see from similar parts of the world within England itself?
Oh yeah, so in England, where I'm from, Birmingham, it's very multicultural. So 50% are not white, and there's tons of crime basically. So loads of stabbings, loads of muggings, just general things like that. It feels like a very unsafe area. When I was in Afghanistan, despite people being the same religion supposedly, people were very respectful. They were very kind. Apparently, stealing was non-existent because of the punishments and the actual beliefs. I believe, a lot of people in the West are, kind of, I would say, dirtying the religion almost, kind of twisting it and not following it. Maybe they go to church or the mosque or something like that, but they don't actually follow their beliefs. Whereas people in Afghanistan are actually completely dedicated and are very good people. That's what I found. Even during the fall of Kabul, when I was running and everyone was shutting up their stores and everything, some guy stopped me and tried to help me with something. So I'm more than grateful to these people, and I do respect them as individuals. I don't respect the Taliban, but I do think individually some of them are good people who I would trust more than some of my neighbors, if that makes sense.
Do you think that when it comes to people who are, let's say, second generation, I think especially more than the first generation, like more than, let's say, the older people who got here and, raised their kids in England, those kids that they end up raising, do you think that because things are a little bit more maybe even the first generation, I don't know, that things are a little bit more lax when it comes to certain rules in England or Sweden or places like that, than, let's say, back then when you were used to, okay, if I do this wrong, I'm going to be punished. That's not there anymore. So it's almost like
exactly.
when the cat's away, the mice will play.
Exactly, yeah. So some third generation people here that are Muslims, they say they're strict Muslims, but I know them personally, and a few of them, this obviously isn't everyone, but a few I've spoken to, sleep around with a guy or girl once every few weeks. They eat all the meats. They skip a prayer every once in a while. They basically just break all the rules, but then they go, oh, don't worry, I'm wearing my headscarf. And then they have a ton of makeup on and all this other stuff. It's like they think if they do one small aspect of their religion, they're protected. But even in Catholicism, there's a thing called being lukewarm, which is basically being worse than an atheist, where you just kind of half-ass the rules, even
Cafeteria.
though Yeah, exactly. And I think it's a little bit pathetic. At least be dedicated to your religion almost. That's something I would respect. But these people, it's an awkward mesh of cringe Western ideals and the stuff, the traditions in some religions that don't really have a big impact. It's bizarre almost. But in Afghanistan, people are very dedicated, and they're not really affected by the West.
Do you think that there's a term for it? I remember some Vice article. They were a bunch of Instagram people were trying to, I guess, when they try to like own something or take it, the counter discourse. Do you ever heard of the term hojabbi? Have you ever heard of this? Where it's like,
Yes.
yeah, like Western Muslim women who don't follow the edicts of Islam, but it's sort of like an aesthetic thing, or it's a cultural thing, and they have a lot of like post-colonial ideals about the West, and but you're saying, like, having been exposed to actual Islamic culture now that the Taliban has taken over Afghanistan, rightfully so in my opinion, but I think that do you feel that the sort of having been of the generation that's been most affected by the migrant crisis in Europe, especially in England, the sort of discourse that I remember, maybe you're a bit too young, but I remember back in the day, I'm a big, the sort of like Mark Stein, neocon, like Europe is being Islamized. But Europe is kind of being Islamized, but do you feel that the same sort of, let's call it like liberal modernity, that's inevitably going to convert Islamic populations within Europe, that it's going to sort of like weaken their religious resolve the way that it has with Christianity? Or do you think that they have an ability to sort of repel the inevitable like modern secularization, I guess you could say?
It's weird. I feel like some things will be cringe and some things will be based. So when you go into Birmingham or the place I'm from, basically, you would see small pockets or large pockets of Muslim populations, and they don't change. Basically, they just create their own little ecosystem, which is quite interesting. And they say they strict themselves, but then the daughters and everything go on TikTok, and then it's all downhill from there. So I feel like there will be kind of a divide of devout people, but I do see Britain becoming an Islamic nation within 100 or 200 years maximum. And I think when you go back to the Middle East or Afghanistan, these areas, I don't think they'll become too Western. I mean, so the Taliban basically said, "Oh, we're going to adopt Western policies. Women can now go to school sometimes." So that's the most Western they're getting. Basically, it's not going to be LGBT flags anytime soon. So I think it's going to stay very pure to extreme Islam, I believe. And I think rightfully so, you should stick to your religion if you want to, and obviously it's their land.
But there is an interesting thing, though, that I think has to be considered, which is the question of conscience. The question of, like you mentioned before, a lot of these laws are very strict there. If you don't do something a certain way, then you're going to get a very heavy punishment. I know, like in Saudi Arabia, for instance, you get your hands done away with for stealing, things of that nature. And
Oh, good, yeah.
yeah, and my question is, when it comes to actually knowing that if I do something wrong, I'm not going to do it, not because I'm afraid of getting punished, but because I know that it's going to affect this person in a certain way and I feel it inside, so that's why I'm not going to do it. My concern from seeing what you were talking about regarding what's happening in the West with the subsequent generations who come there is that it does not seem like it's this inner conscience, this understanding of doing wrong. It's more of
Yeah.
just this very ingrained idea of if
Yeah.
I do A, B is going to happen to me. And to me, just that kind of culture, even though the people could be very kindly as far as how they interact with you, my fear is that in a Western state is not going to be a good, it's not going to be good as far as getting people that inner consciousness, which I think can be developed over time. If people are just going to be afraid of getting punished and that's why they're going to act a certain way, then something feels off to me. Something feels like it's not going in the right direction. But I'm curious if you have thoughts on that.
Oh, of course, yes. I do understand sometimes you have to install kind of a fear of breaking the law in general, just because it's the only way to keep peace. Like, for example, if you was running Afghanistan and no one was listening to what you do, you would enforce harsher and harsher punishments. But I think with the West, it's getting worse, so that's why people are degrading morally in general. I mean, it's not just people with Islam, but just in the entire population. That's why you see Sweden's crime statistics going up massively. It's not because of changing statistics and sampling in data. It's because people are realizing they can get away with things, and because their families aren't over there enforcing strict policies. They're basically just giving into moral corruption. I think sometimes you do have to enforce harsh punishments, and then from there you can bring up the moral spirit and actually learn why it's bad, like you said. But I think the biggest issue is just having good parents who actually can provide and actually talk through religion properly, and that's what's missing. I think it's a heavy consumeristic population that's kind of screwing over the West in every single demographic, really.
But that's what I'm curious about. When you say every single demographic, if you have, for example, on one hand, somebody who's raised in a Swedish household or a Norwegian household or whatever, and they have parents that, let's say, are very sex positive and very friendly towards gay people and whatever, and they end up getting raised in this very liberal environment, I don't think they're going to be the ones who are going to throw car bombs. I don't think they're going to be the ones who are going to be running around stabbing people. That is still a separate culture, which does have spiritual death, you could say. It does have a lack of, looking beyond whatever it is in the daily, in TikTok. But still, I would separate that from what ends up, I think, happening with second generation people who come from other places that have this stricter punishment. So do you possibly see there being a similar difference between the two? And where do you think eventually these different paths are going to go in the European countries?
Yeah, so I think I don't want it to go like this, but I think it's going to be the same thing with 1920s Germany. People are going to see things get worse and worse. People are going to be pushed too far with their beliefs. There's going to be huge divides. One of the groups is going to revolt, either the Liberals or the Democrats or the Republicans, and whichever one in between. Some group is going to try and push for power. We've seen it with Antifa or any other groups of people. They're going to be radicalized in their one direction, either way. And then they're going to clash with the other populations. I think it was Socrates who said you actually need a homogeneous population to actually have a stable democracy. And I think with other people having different interests, it's going to be a melting pot of ideas that clash until people just clash in general. Because when you're comfortable with fattened foods and a nice house and heating and everything else, what do you go for? You go for ideals and you nitpick politics. And that's what the West is doing right now. people are just clashing over the smallest of things. It's only going to get bigger and bigger.
Well, oh, sorry, did I cut you off, Miles? I'm very sorry.
No, carry on. Sorry, carry on.
Well, I was going to say, we sort of gotten ahead of ourselves because I do want to talk a bit more about your conversion, and also some of the things that your not friends, let's call them, fellow students were saying about you, how you're this evil narcissist, dark triad, a transphobe, and all this crap. But we'll get into that. But what I wanted to say is that it's interesting we're having you on because, to me, when the sort of response to what you did, your trip, and we could also talk about dark tourism in general, because you said you went to Chernobyl and all that. People said maybe it's kind of true that it's irresponsible. You're some stupid kid. You don't know what you're doing. But to me, it seems that when I don't know. Listen, this is gonna sound like out there, but when I look at you, I look at the sort of the same British youth of the colonial period that would command vast swaths of the earth from very few men in very arduous conditions. Do you feel that, not to say that what you were doing is the same as the British colonial spirit, but the Rudyard Kipling poem about Afghanistan, the Afghan War. But do you feel that there's sort of what you did is almost like a delicious throwback to the greatness of the British people, and for right or wrong, for all of the evil and all of the good that they've done, do you feel that modern day Britain has lost something of their own sense of self in terms of their relation to history and their colonial past? And do you think that what you did is sort of like a weird 4chan culture way of recapitulating that? So, sorry, I've talked too much, but go ahead.
That's true. Yeah, absolutely. So I do feel like Britain's completely lost its identity. No one has any pride in this country anymore. No one actually believes in any ideals or believes in a flag. It's just something that flies there and people kind of just glare at it, look at it in general. But no one has any belief in the system or anything. They just feel like they're wandering. No one nowadays apparently has a sense of purpose. Everyone's some depressed nihilist who reads philosophy and is an edgy atheist on Reddit. I think it's a little bit pathetic almost. Yes. And I kind of laugh in their faces, but I do wish them the best. But at the same time, I just can't respect them. I mean, I've got communists, feminists, people who study psychology and drink 5 times a night criticizing me, and I don't really care because what do their opinions mean to me with these people? If they have a valid criticism, I'll obviously counter it because they don't know what they're talking about. So they weren't there. They read a news article that was, just some general shitpost, really, where it's just ramblings from a left-wing journalist who doesn't know what they're talking about, and then they suddenly try to adopt an opinion because it's the most popular one. So Britain has lost their identity. I don't really care what these people say about me. The whole transphobe thing, I'll address that. So I own this confession page on my Facebook page where basically you would send in a message to this page like a confession about university, and I would either let it through or not. Some of it would be like, I threw up last night on this night out, and I'd go approve. Now there's one where it's like trans rights. Now this is a Catholic page, and Catholics are not LGBT, and it can't be.
It was a troll.
So I said, well, no, they were being serious. I was like, not gonna post that. I don't post like any Nazi stuff. I don't post any other stuff like that. Yeah. I'm not gonna post that. And they go, that's really transphobic, Miles. And then they go, would you date a trans person? I go, no, because if they're trans, they're not Christian. They're not devout Catholics. So no, I would not date them. And plus, I don't believe the whole trans thing. And then they freaked out, and I don't really care. They can call me all these names, and I'll just laugh in their faces. Like, what do I lose if I'm homeless? At least I'm homeless and I'm right.
Oh my God! Well, that's the thing. It's sort of like the material condition of someone that you're denouncing. It's like you were literally homeless and you were on the edge, but yet it's like that doesn't matter because you have naughty no thoughts. And it's I find that very interesting. Yeah. But I mean, a lot of go ahead.
They said I was a narcissist for going to Afghanistan and actually enjoying it. But no, I think, why should I go to a country and then be put in a bad situation? And then, just should I be pathetic and cry? Should I, break down just to appease people? No, what I'm going to do is make the best out of the situation and actually try and cope and keep my level head so I can actually get out of there and be absolutely fine. I shouldn't, get overly emotional at such times. The same things with soldiers and doctors and all that. Obviously, I'm nowhere as good as those people, but it's the same type of mindset. I'm not narcissistic or anything. I haven't hurt people. I do a lot of charitable work. I help a lot of people behind the scenes, and I don't brag about it specifically or do a huge list of these are people who I helped, because that's narcissistic within itself. I remember I've had a few people too. These are the same people who were complaining about me on Reddit. They wrote to the university, and those letters got sent to me. And here's the thing too, I know their identities, so I don't really care who they are, but the university actually didn't censor the names, so they basically highlighted them in black, and I just copy and pasted them and saw them, and I told the university about that. But these same people with these Reddit accounts, they were saying I was a terrorist who went there to fund them or something.
Oh God!
How does that work? How's that work? Because I was the ones running away from them, so they don't really make sense. They're a bit kooky, they're a little bit mentally deficient, I would say. And I've met these people a lot of times, and let's say they're not these, the brightest people. I wish them all the best, but they're overly emotional. They suffer from huge mental health issues. They have a body count in the hundreds, both boys and girls. And when I think, why should I respect soul? It's like an overweight person criticizing me at the gym. It's like, no. If you're not qualified in the actual field, I don't really respect your opinion on it, unless if it's something that's revelating. And same things with these people. These people, get drunk 5 times a night, go out, constantly post liberal stuff online, and then they criticize me for not being liberal. But that's not what I'm going for. I'm not going for their ideals. I'm going for my own. They're not there. I'm not there for their approval. The only reason I post online is because I wanted some people to enjoy the ride, and everyone else who doesn't want to enjoy the ride can simply get off and not view me. It's as simple as. If I see someone I don't like, I don't write a paragraph. So it's a funny thing too. I got loads of messages. For every positive message, for every 10 positive messages, I had 1 negative, and there was always some elderly schizo person basically saying, "Oh, Miles, you're such a narcissist. You're a terrible person. You should kill yourself. Kill yourself."
Oh, this is on YouTube. This is on YouTube. We gotta be careful.
Sorry,
there. No problem.
Yes,
some gender goblin telling you to anti-hero. That's
better. That's a good reference. Remember, somebody even brought an iPod to that gravesite.
Well, oh God, oh my God.
Oh my.
Well, Datuda asks, who treated you better, the literal Taliban or libtards? I think we know the answer to that one.
Yeah, Taliban.
Sorry.
The Taliban handed me some water at one point. They patted me on the back. They took photos of me. Libertards called me a narcissist, but then, gave me, end of life threats. So, it's kind of like, why would you call yourself, why would you criticize someone and call them a narcissist, and then tell them to do something like that? Isn't that kind of, and ironic almost? These people have no self-awareness. At the end of the day, I was more scared of the media than I was by the Taliban.
Do you think that there's also a connection here to, if you were to, for example, go into the American South or go to Texas somewhere, I would expect, I've never been to Texas, but I would expect in the more rural parts, there would be a lot of sir, there would be a lot of ma'am, there would be a lot of that, because that's more of an honor-based society where they know that, you'd probably be liable to get beaten up or, to get shot at, let's say, if you disrespect somebody. So it's almost like saying, good fences make good neighbors, good weaponry makes for respectability, because you have to be able to make sure that you don't do something that's going to insult somebody. But now with the internet, everybody's just free to mudfling and to do the worst things, especially when they feel like they're politically empowered. So I am curious what exactly is going to be the end of the line here. Like, do you think that there are going to be people who are going to learn to restrict themselves, or do you think we're going to go into some kind of an even further crescendo where there will be people so empowered to just say the absolute worst thing because they're not going to get into trouble, and it's going to feel like people talk about feeling humiliation, feeling like the establishment is just outwardly humiliating all the people that they consider to have wrongthink?
Oh yeah, I do think the whole wrong thing will actually happen. So I read 1984 and I was like, wow, what a documentary on 2020 at the time. So I do see it happening. I don't see it going, as far as it's portrayed in the book. But at the same time, I do think a lot of people will be shut down. There'll be more and more control, more and more restrictions on the internet, and everyone's free speech, especially with CCTV and voice recognition, all this rubbish. There's going to be slowly more restrictions opened up. I mean, you can go on Twitter in 2008 and watch Live League videos of fun.
Yeah.
But now you can't even criticize Neil deGrasse Tyson without an atheist, tracking down your IP. So it's I feel like things are going to be slowly introduced, and it's going to get more and more restrictive almost, and there will only be a few nations where you've got utopian free speech. North Korean will be seen as a kind of free speech zone. It'll be seen as libertarian almost. I'm joking, but some countries I think will stay quite good. Like for example, Poland, I really do admire as a country because they actually allow them to have right-wing views and everything like that.
Well, Poland seems like a good balance. They have Christianity, well, they have Catholicism. It's always been a very heavily Catholic country, and at the same time, they do allow for differing opinions. And I think it's important to have this balance between having, giving people a certain amount of dignity, but not giving them the freedom to basically shit on other people's dignity because they feel empowered to do so. So when you talk about having more of a homogeneous society, let's say, how would you say that would work in practice when it comes to if somebody is, for example, like take myself for instance. My mom is Jewish, and we're originally from Russia, from St. Petersburg, USSR. And I want to be the best American I possibly can be. And we moved to America, and this is what I want to be. This is what my family wants to be. And I've known many other people who were in my position, whether they're Jewish, whether they're from Nigeria or from wherever. They want to be the best Americans, and they have the same cultural values when it comes to how they raise their kids to be able to pass that on. Would you say that when you say homogeneous, that the people who actually want to be a good American or Englishman or whatever, that they would be able to do so despite having, let's say, different genetic profile or whatever?
Yeah, I would say most of the time. I wouldn't say, for example, pretend half of Mexico wanted to come to the US and then they all promised, to be American in culture and everything. I would obviously limit the numbers greatly, like with Trump, how he proposed. So I would let in some people, of course, and then as long as they try to be American and good people and pick up all the values of the language and so on, absolutely, they can do that. That's cool. Like, for example, if I went to a different country, I wouldn't demand they have a little English sector and open like an English takeaway shop and so on. I would go there, I would learn the language, respect the culture, and basically contribute to the local community. I would become one of them almost as much as I can. And I would thank them for trying to include me as well, because I've been invited in. Like when you go to someone's house, you don't demand that everything gets changed for you. You say thank you, you appreciate the stuff they give you, you fit in, you read the mood basically. I think the same thing is with international affairs, but a lot of people obviously don't want to do that, and I can see both sides really. I can see a family that just came from a war-torn country and kind of wants to just settle down, have some peace and quiet, come to a different country and doesn't want to go through a whole ordeal because they didn't really want to come to a different country in the first place to begin with. It's really bizarre, but at the same time with globalization just accelerating, I don't see, in my opinion, having a difference, because either way, some countries will go through the route of just keeping immigration low, like with Japan, and same with Russia and also Poland, and then some countries will just become
I wouldn't say Russia's keeping immigration low if you're talking about the Muslims.
Yes, they have.
No, they have not. No, here's the thing. No, here's basically what happened.
Lev is a self-hating Russian. Don't worry about it.
No, I hate the Russian government, and I love the Russian people. That the Russian government keeps being a parasite towards. It's this, no, it's this, and I think you have been in RT before, but it is this, like, Russian Potemkin village that's created for a Western audience.
Lev, are you accusing our guest of being a glowy because he was on Russia?
No, it's fine. No, I mean, Russia today is owned by the Russian government, and they do peddle a particular kind of propaganda.
CBC is owned by the Canadian government. I hate it. So...
But anyway, the point that I'm getting to here is in Russia right now, there's a lot of people from Tajikistan, from the other stans that are around that area, as well as from the Caucasus, who come in there, and especially the deal that Putin made with Kadyrov guarantees that the people who come there from Chechnya, they can do whatever they want and they don't get persecuted. So they can go and have their way forcefully with a Russian woman on the street, and nothing bad's going to happen to them, because that's how the Russian government was able to make peace with that particular area. So they have their own really big problems when it comes to that.
Well, I think even if you're an immigrant or not, if you rape someone in general, I think you should be thrown on the island and just left to survive, basically, or in prison for life. If it's definitive, you definitely raped. It's on camera. Evidence is paramount. So I definitely think that. But at the same time, with Russia, Ben, that's not too good. I don't like that. You need a lot of people that would respect for culture and everything. You need to, basically, when you're building a team, like with a country with a fair population, you need to pick the best of the best, and that's what Japan does to some degree, I believe, anyway.
But do you also think that... I'm curious, do you think there's also a difference between culture and civilization? So when I say the word culture and I say the word civilization, what would civilization imply to you?
It would be the monuments, the ideals, the actual founding, the wars, the roles of each gender in each society, because there's only two genders anyway. Stuff like that, basically. And I never really thought to deeply about the definition, but yeah.
Well, I'm curious because with something like civilization, I see there being different cultures. There's different ways that people pray. There's different ways that people, make food for each other. But when it comes to civilization, like when you have the idea of like what is civilized, like Japan is civilized in how they conduct their affairs. For the most part, there's obviously various exceptions, but there are other places where life is much harder, life is much more brutal, and you could say that there's a culture there, and they could be very, like in Afghanistan, for instance. Would you say that there would be the same level of civilization there? I would, and again, I wasn't there, way more than me, but just upon reading various things and just seeing just how hard and how tough and how retributional a lot of the customs there are, I wouldn't say that it is at that same civilization level, and it doesn't mean that the civilization we have here in the West is great by any means. All the problems that you said right now, all the hellscapes that people are living through right now in their mind, it's not good, but I want to see like what exactly can we agree on would be at least a direction that maybe those cultures could also go into, while at the same time avoiding the mires that our current quote-unquote civilization is trapped in.
Well, I would say the one thing that unites, and also, I would say the one thing that defines civilization between all cultures and everything, and civilizations in general, would be being in the country and being able to walk to someone on the streets and basically just ask them a question or ask them some basic help, directions, maybe borrow a phone charger or, use their phone potentially, and not have fear if someone approaches you. When I was in Afghanistan, people would come up to me, and I wasn't fearful, because a lot of people were just good people. They were good neighbors, basically. That's what I'm trying to say. They were going through such hardships, but at the same time, they were very kind. And they were very generous. They had so little, but they gave so much. But at the same time, in places like America, I do love the American people, but a lot of them, they have a lot. So, for example, loads of food and resources, but then they become gluttonous and eat a ton of food. And if someone comes up to you and say Detroit, you're assuming you get shot or stabbed or mugged.
Yes.
So, but in Afghanistan, if someone comes up to you, you go, how can I help you, brother, basically. So I think that's the one thing that could be taught across all those cultures. Is that what you I
think it's close, but it also I think it's important to emphasize that other thing I talked about before when it comes to are a lot of the ways that people act something that's from the inside, like the conscience, like the inner Jiminy Cricket? Or is it just like this inherent fear of punishment? Could one fuse with the other? Could one kind of bring the other up? And, yeah.
Because like in Christianity, you have a fear of hell, which makes sense because hell is I would say hell and fear in general is a good motivator to do research. And let's say you were threatened with, say, detention or a severe punishment, let's say, as a kid in Afghanistan, to read the Quran and study actually, the holy texts and everything. Then from there, you can actually develop the inner conscience and also the inner understanding and depth that you need for compassion and everything and empathy on such a greater level. So I think fear is a good motivator that also leads to that. So I would say, yeah, you definitely do need very harsh punishments. That could be a good motivator, but it sometimes doesn't work. It has to be directed in the right way. Some people might just be so fearful that they'll just kill everyone and leave no witnesses so they don't get convicted instead of just stealing the person running. So there's a huge contrast. That's why I think you do need some sort of I can't say the word now, spirituality, yes, or some sort of religion to keep you in check almost. It's why the Buddhists are so peaceful despite them living seemingly hard lives compared to the West. Same things with most Christians, Muslims, and everything in between, really. It's only the libtard atheist, the edgy atheist West that's kind of morally breaking down in every single regard.
Well, morally breaking down, possibly. Oh, Gia, I know I kind of stepped on your question. One final question that I have before is, there are stories that I heard of, let's say, women going on adventures, going to India, let's say, and a lot of bad
and
things.
hooking up with a shaman, and getting dicked down by a 60-year-old dude.
Yeah, well, before
before
the 60-year-old dude, there are instances.
Sorry, I had to get up for a minute.
There are often these instances that I keep hearing about, women going on vacation and then various gangs in those particular areas end up taking advantage of them quite a lot, and this is something that seems to be reoccurring. So there is some, let's say, unhingedness going on within places that I don't know. I'm curious, like, what would be the differences between those places that the women went to, whether it's in India or whether you remember that whole beheading story and
Oh yes.
yeah. So these things I think do happen, and there is a fear that if anybody was to go into these places. Even I believe this was in Bolivia, there was some YouTuber who went to Bolivia and was doing a webcam session there, and some of the villagers told him he wanted to go to the most dangerous village in Bolivia. He went around saying like, oh, there's nothing dangerous here, everything's fine, while a lot of the villagers were just speaking to him in language he didn't understand, and they were basically saying, dude, what the fuck are you doing here? Get out of here, this is a dangerous area. Like, there are environments like that, so I'm curious, what was it specifically about where you were that same kind of thing did not happen, and it does end up happening in those environments? So what is the difference?
Well, I think the one thing is you've always got to prepare for the worst case scenario, which I did at the same time. I had a tracker on me that was disguised as a different item in my bag and on my body, basically. So no matter what, wherever I went, as long as there was a clear view of the satellites, someone was going to be able to see where I was. At the same time, too, I wasn't endangering other people's lives, so that's a good thing, because at the end of the day, it's my life to mess about with if I really want to, as long as I'm not harming anyone else. But if you're, say, in Bolivia, bringing around a tour guide and some friends and saying, trust me, come to this village, and then you'll get beheaded, that's kind of messed up and that's kind of on you. But with Afghanistan, I think it's quite safe, and at the same time, I think if you're going there for a noble reason, or anywhere in the world for a noble reason, such as me doing charity work, or me going to South Sudan with a bunch of money basically to hand out to people who desperately need it, I think if you die there, you die doing a good cause. And if I got beheaded in South Sudan, but I gave a few thousand to starving children that were going to die otherwise, or suffer immensely, I would say, I'm actually quite glad I died doing that. So at the end of the day, I think, I'm not too sure. I think that answers the question, right? Or did I go off track?
No, that was, I would say that's close, at least as far as your experience there. But I'm just trying to find out what exactly was the difference between, and I know that you weren't in those specific places, so you can't really speak to them, but I am still trying to figure out this level of danger that somebody like me or other people would assume would exist in a lot of these places, again, by the media, but I can't just turn my eyes away from that either. So what was the difference between that kind of village and what the women that I described may have been experiencing as far as the kind of cultures that they were meeting? Like,
So it would be the culture. So in Afghanistan, if you're walking around as a woman, you would have to be paired up with either a man or another woman who's trusted, basically. So if you're walking around alone as a woman, that's a whole different deal. And basically, you will have something bad happen to you, unfortunately, or it's very likely that someone will take advantage. Because even though there's very good people in the cultures, a good majority, there's an overwhelming amount of people who are terrible and just looking for a slight opportunity. And especially women in such a strict Islamic culture, if you've got someone who's perverted the mind and a rapist, and he sees a white woman for the first time in 10 years and he finds her insanely attractive, this guy is going to snap almost and do something terrible, unfortunately.
But the law is supposed to keep them under control, though. So is it a matter of the law not being applied that well, or just like a mist, like the police weren't there at the time? Like, what exactly would you say when it comes to...
It's like the law only works sometimes. It's a thing. It's like liberals who see mass shooting in a no gun zone. And they go, "Why didn't it happen?" But it was meant to be no guns. But either way, I think the laws do work to some extent. For example, maybe a few people will be deterred, but there's always going to be one who breaks the law at the very least. So I think there's always a small disparity, but no, it's not going to cover it 100% of the time. It's not idealistic, it's not perfect, but it's still good to be there, basically. And I think the laws and all the rules they put in do hold some weight and do carry some value.
And actually, I'm curious, before I get to Gio, about the food. What did you think of the cuisine there?
Just the one thing about Afghanistan that's underrated. No one talks about it. The food there is the best food I've ever tried. I've been in Italy. The Italian food's amazing. But for the price, I went to a random place. It was literally made out of corrugated iron, sticks, and random bricks, right? It literally had no road. It was middle of nowhere. I thought it was just a random building. I walk in there. I have the best kebab of my life for £1, which is like $1 something, basically, like $1.50. It was incredible. And these people have only basic spices and resources, and they make something that tastes so good. And it's all grown locally. They will get pomegranates that they would pick from a farm 20 miles away, drive it on the same day, and then squeeze it into a little cup for you, and then you'll have the purest foods ever and the purest drink. The food there is amazing. It's not GMO. It's not dodgy. It's not full of soy. It's yeah, exactly. It's actually good, healthy food that actually is nutritious and adds something to you. No sugar dependency.
So people aren't dying from a lot of the stuff that Americans are dying of or English are dying of when it comes to heart disease, obesity, things of that nature. You're not going to find that there.
Yeah, you do not find an obese person in Afghanistan, and if you do, the reason is they're truckers or something. It's very rare to see someone who's overweight, thankfully. But at the same time, they die from other things, of course. Their life expectancy is a lot shorter just because, there's asbestos everywhere, the pollution, the lack of medical access, stuff like that, basically. But it does have the potential to do a lot better than the US in terms of life expectancy. Things really got better, I think.
Yeah, no corn syrup, somebody said. So I do agree, no name.
They also have a lot of chemical dumps and munitions, depleted uranium. For example, Iraq is like a chemical waste dump because of the intervention. Yeah, I'm right about the collapsing birth rate. Yeah, but Sunny freaked out on me for some reason. I don't know. Anyways, it's funny you mention because Afghani cuisine is a mix of Mediterranean, Arab, and also Indian cuisine. They have a lot of different. It literally is kind of like why it became the graveyard of empires, because there's so many different civilizations on its border. But it's funny when you look at that grand view of things. But I guess when you're talking about experiencing cultural cohesion, it is kind of interesting, going back to that question of why is it that people in Britain convert to Islam? Why is it that there are I don't know, baby witches on TikTok? It seems that the sort of like cringe Reddit fedora thing, it's still a reality, but it seems that people have been subject to a sort of mania. Like they're willing to find anything metaphysical to like fill the void in the absence of Christianity. Whether it's like, I don't know, doing seances against Donald Trump on TikTok, or it's like becoming an Islamist. Like
well,
it's
maybe it is kind of like the Rousseau noble savage idea kind of transferred to a lot of these young people who seek out something pure and something noble, but they don't want to seek it out in their own backyard. They don't want to seek it out amongst people who have had generations upon generations of tradition that they can learn from, which I think is the direction you're going, Miles. But you're in England, so being a Catholic in England was... Where? Wait, what?
I said unfortunately. When you said,
yes, exactly. Yes. So there was something called the dissenters. Are you familiar with the dissenters?
No, but do go on.
Okay, so the dissenter, just so I make sure I'm getting it right here. Let's see. So they were okay. So, no. Actually, these are not Catholics. Sorry, these are Protestants. So my mistake. We're not going to talk about the dissenters anymore. But there was an interesting pamphlet written by the same guy who wrote, let's see, what was that book? The one about Daniel Defoe. So Daniel Defoe, yeah, he wrote a pamphlet called, and I love this title, The Shortest Way with the Dissenters. Now there is just something about, I mean, you kind of get what shortest way means, right? Like the shortest way with the dissenters. I don't know if that's a phrase that...
I haven't heard of it before. Do you mean kind of...
So,
Lev, who are the dissenters? I think you have to explain. You have to give more context here.
Okay. Yes, so Daniel...
I know it's explaining the joke, but it's like...
Okay, Gio, explain the joke. And by the way, he wrote Robinson Crusoe, Daniel Defoe. But, so basically the pamphlet was about how these dissenters were causing so many problems in England that... they basically had to be done away with. They had to be crucified. Let's crucify the thieves, all that. But it was meant as a parody. Yeah. And because of that, it ruined the entire career of Daniel Defoe from there on in. And I think he even got into prison for a while. But I don't know why I brought that specific thing up. I guess I brought it up because I thought that it was related to Catholicism. But in general, there was just this... mass amount of religious fervor going on in England, Catholics versus Protestants versus the C of E. And right now, what is it like being a Catholic in the, let's say, more C of E majority England?
Yeah, so I would put it in context of when I was at university. So what happened was I would go on these Catholic dating apps and then I would find someone in my local area, someone who's... apparently devotedly Catholic or Christian in general. So when I would meet them, turns out they are crazy alcoholics who go out 5 times a night, like I said. They go to church once every few weeks or something like that. You're meant to go every Sunday or preferably every day to mass. Don't know anything, swear like a sailor or just swear in general. They eat tons of foods. They basically have tons of sex with random people. They're not even true Catholics. I think for every 10 Catholics I meet, 9 of them are just false Catholics. Like I've had this one person approach me saying, "Oh, you can be a Catholic and pro-abortion." I'm like, "No, are you stupid?" It's like saying, "Oh, can I be pro-drowning in a lifeguard?" It doesn't make sense. I think it's retarded. So a lot of these people are very lost, and I think Catholicism has definitely lost its way in England. When you walk into a church, I have a small friendship group of about 10 people who are pure Catholics, but the rest of the people in the churches are just old people. So I feel like we're going to become a major majority, so we might have to start our own little state at one point. Maybe Bertarreal, but
another issue is, I think it's funny you mentioned how the way that they like the sort of younger Taliban members were soy facing over your Visich and Legend. Yeah. It is funny how like, for example, when they first conquered Afghanistan, there was those images of them like on the river boats, like the paddle boats, and having a fun time at the disco and the bumper cars. It is funny how, like it is kind of surreal. There's this great book, I mentioned this on the show a lot. There's this book by this art critic from Scandinavia. His name is Thurston Botsborstein. He wrote this book. It's called ISIS and Italian Futurism, where it's about how, in a way, like these ultra-traditionalist Wahhabi Islamic, Taliban members, how they utilize technology and digital technology and social media, and they have like high production value videos like you used to find back when Live Leaks was around. But it is kind of funny how they've sort of embraced like an odd form of futurism in that it's sort of like the closest to like what trads on Twitter talk about when they post, I don't know, like for Warhammer 40k images or whatever. It's like, it's really wild how they
translate it.
Yeah, exactly. Like how they translate, for example, you becoming like a living meme almost into like this, oh my God, Lord Miles. Like it's really just, it's fascinating. Like that part was just, it blew my mind.
It's like, oh, my ancestor. Yeah. But I have mixed feelings about it because I read Ted Kay's book, and obviously I don't encourage all the dodgy booms he did.
Yes.
Yeah, I did sense of that, but
you've got
I don't encourage any of that stuff, but his points about people wanting to remain traditionalists but adopting new technology and then ruining their tradition or deviate it from it massively is very true, because I don't believe you can strictly keep tradition and new technology. They're incompatible because they introduce different aspects to things. So I understand in the short term, it's good for the Taliban from their perspective. I don't agree with it, but it's good from their perspective, creating these shit posts on Twitter and everything and so on, where they're making soy faces with the West and the Chad with the Taliban. But I think in the long term, it's going to have a devastating effect. I really do want to basically run off into the woods and start my own little village and just ban internet. At some point, I'm not even joking. I've got a 200-page document on how I would do that.
Well,
it involves maxing out.
The Hasidic Jews.
Would you ever release it?
No, because it involves maxing out all my credit cards, and that's technically fraud, so I can't release that. But of course, I'm just taking this as a joke, guys, 100%. I would never do that in a worst-case situation. I respect massive international banks so much because they care about me as a person. So yeah.
What the Hasidic Jews do, by the way, is not all of them, but like the Hasidic out of the Hasidic, the most ultra-Orthodox in Israel, what they do is they have these signs written down the wall that basically warn people, don't go on the internet. I don't know how effective those are, but they are trying in their own way to just keep people from accessing other information. I don't know, man. Like, it's weird. I understand where you're coming from. I do think that maybe people can't find a balance between being able to take on the burden of having additional information and learning to be a lot stricter with oneself on whether you allow the information to affect you in such a way as to be led by that information as opposed to being stronger.
Oh, of course, yeah. It's like, for example, pretend I was Epstein-pilled and I locked you in the basement or something, and I surrounded you by salad or jelly beans, right? And then I said, oh, you can only eat the salads, and you're going to be here for a few years. You're going to eat the jelly beans eventually, right? Because you're going to be sick of the salad and you want some variety. It's tempting because it's right there, it's in front of you. It's in reach. It's very easy to get, like all things on the internet and all things nowadays. And that's the issue with modern society. You have so many temptations in front of you. But if you grew up in an Amish home, you would be surrounded by basically, no real temptations. You would encourage one another. I'm not saying go as far as a cult, but I don't like the whole temptation of the internet and it being there. That's why every 11-year-old became a adult video addicts and so on. Everyone knows it's bad. Everyone knows you shouldn't be watching that stuff. Some are delusional actually think it's normal, but it's really not, basically. And the modern society is kind of exemplified. It's all the good and the bad in humanity, and most of the time, of course, we don't know what's good for ourselves because sex was good, 100,000 years ago for reproduction. Now people have VR videos where they have 5 different girls and some sort of gyrating thing that goes on a certain other thing. So people are just manipulating their own biology to basically ruin themselves. So yeah, screw modern technology.
Is there also something you would say to the idea of understanding bad, understanding what it means to, what evil means, so that if you understand it and then overcome it, it's different than being completely innocent of knowing anything bad at all? Because that seems to be not somebody that's had as much experience and then being able to differentiate between the two. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
Oh, of course, yes. But at the same time, it comes to the question, where do you draw the border? Because do you suddenly commit, mass, mass, and then go, oh, now I know bombing is that's a word. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's different.
Yeah,
It reminds me of that quote by Jesus Christ having to do with what comes out of your mouth being more important than what goes into your mouth. Meaning, I don't know, this is at least my interpretation of it, that there's all kinds of knowledge out there, there's all kinds of things for people to discover and then consider within themselves. I think what's way more important is the actual acts that people do onto others, that's something that ends up affecting people in a much bigger way. And so the knowledge of both good and evil, and then deciding between the two, deciding which path you want to go on, I think that there may be something to that.
I would say originally I came from being a very bad person, as in because I was an atheist who sinned quite a bit, and then I think that did make me a bad person. But I only think you should go down that route if you find yourself being self-aware in that kind of evil state originally. So you shouldn't go, oh wow, today I'm going to commit crimes, and then
no. But again, just to be clear, I'm not saying.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, I'm not saying committing crimes. I'm not saying doing bad things. I'm saying understanding what that is, understanding what evil is. And when I look up in the sky, I recently moved to much more of a countryside setting, so you can actually see the stars at night. When I look up into the sky and I just see all these stars, and then I just go on the internet, just type in galaxy clusters, and I could even do that right now. Just type in galaxy clusters, and you see something that, again, unless this is all stimulation, it's both a stimulation and a simulation. Unless this is a simulation, I think that there is something to the idea that a lot of the experiences that we have right now is just the bare minimum of what we may be able to discover and experience throughout, if this life experience doesn't just end, if just our experience of being embodied or disembodied people, if this is something that continues on. Because if I look out into the sky and I see all these galaxies and stars, I just can't believe that this is it. That this experience that we're having right now, as great as it is, then after this we get old, we die, and then we either go to heaven or hell, and that's it. Not that I'm discounting that there are these higher states like a heaven or like a hell. It just seems like there's way more to discover here of what exactly all of this is. So I'm curious if you have any thoughts on there as well.
I was going to say originally too, I don't know if you can understand evil if you don't actually expose yourself to it to some degree. It's like, you can't, sometimes you meet a terrible person, but you can't really describe the immense anguish that you feel to someone else when you actually met them and all this other stuff. I believe you need to sometimes expose yourself to evil to actually understand it and then understand why it's bad, or surround yourself by it anyway. But at the same time too, I do believe you need to find a greater meaning in life. But the issue is when you're not in survival mode and you're comfortable and you get food and all the resources you need at any point, you basically just ponder yourself to death almost. And I think that's the issue with the West. You're not running around, you're not giving into your biology in a good way. You're basically just overthinking yourself. And that's why I think most people should join the military, because either way you're running and you're getting adrenaline, and despite you not having any greater meaning because you're just a runt in a group. Most people describe their experience as one of the greatest experiences of their lives, being in the military and doing some sport and say doing hiking in general or something like that. Or with me going to Afghanistan, it's because I gave into my biology and actually just started enjoying myself a little bit, and not doing things artificial like within the West with drinking and partying.
Yeah.
You have to become a little bit Ted K-pilled.
Do you also think that there is a spirit of discovery there that's inherent inside of you, where you want to seek out to uncharted territory?
Oh, absolutely, yes. I want to go to this place. The reason I picked South Sudan to go to on this Sunday, so in a few days, is because when I go on Google Maps, and I spend hours on Google Maps, admittedly, I get the little button where you can go over and see the street view. And I look at South Sudan, I go, there's nothing there. But on the maps, there is a town, and I can't find a single thing on the internet about it. Not any book it's mentioned, nothing. But there's people living there. And that's interesting, really fascinating. It's amazing too, because these people are isolated and they have different cultures. And I want to see what life is like there. And maybe if they have issues, I can help, of course. And that's something I really do want to explore. I want to come across things that I've never come across before and see how I react and expose myself to some danger to some degree. Because either way, I think it's worth it and it's within my tolerance. Like, for example, I respect some people's tolerance that they, don't want to go deep into the pool. And my tolerance is I want to go down to these areas, do some good work and risk only my own life at my own expense. And I don't expect anyone to help me out in that situation, unless if they really want to. I want to go to these places. I want to explore. I wouldn't say conquer, but at the same time, I want to leave a mark almost. Maybe a flag. Maybe a flag and not, anything else.
Man who become king. There was that one meme. Look at these. Look at these comments. Galactic Reich was his real motive. The military is libtarded. Now would rather join PTR. White Sharia space futurism. Well, I mean, there is archaeofuturism. That is a good book. But
there was also a comment from Nico over here. So Nico said, Lev, since when is having experiences an objective? That's pointless. So I agree in half, because there is this whole usage of the word experiences, like somebody said, like, I'm going to go find myself, I'm going to have an experience, like all of that stuff. But there is also the idea of gaining understanding of what exactly is going on, because there are people who aren't satisfied with just living in a village, with just doing things the way that it's been done. There are people who want to find out what exactly is going on, inside of our bodies, what's going on, out in space, what's going on in these fragments that I'm looking at right now, digging deeper, smaller and bigger at the same time. And I think there is this tendency that human beings have to want to discover, to want to gain that kind of wisdom of how exactly all this stuff works. I don't think there's anything wrong with that particularly. So where would you personally square away that kind of tendency? Because that is also a desire. But where would you square away that kind of tendency and, let's say, at least how I personally interpret the quality of godliness? I would interpret it personally as the state of wanting to give for the sake of giving, instead of giving for the sake of receiving. So that's my personal interpretation of that. But where would you place those two objectives, I guess you could say? The first one I mentioned about the discovery and the second one about the giving.
Well, I think you have to have... Sorry, I'm dying a little bit. If I died before South Sudan...
Oh, no! Wait, do you have the...
Taliban died from a common cold. Yeah.
It's just the common cold. It's not the it's not the It's not the Backstreet Boys World Tour.
Oh no, that whole thing isn't real. Anyway, it's all psyop.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, yes.
Yeah, the Backstreet Boys are not real. They're holograms.
Yeah, exactly.
I think you could say it on YouTube, but just you can't do it all the time. That's like, you know what I mean? Like halfway in the conversation. Anyways, please go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
Yes, I think you can't have discovery without charity or giving to some degree or helping. So you need to discover things first. And a lot of things you will discover, people will be happy and completely normal. They won't need anything, but you'll always come across someone who does need some help. If I go out to my street right now, I won't see anyone for a good few miles, but then after discovering a new little turn, maybe I might come across something that someone's overlooked, and then I can go there and help out. It's same with the UN in South Sudan. They're in the main areas, but from areas I'm going to, haven't been touched for thousands of years in some districts. And I might come across some people that are very friendly and inviting, and maybe they won't kill me and skin me alive instantly. Maybe they'll invite me in. They'll have little food, but they'll give me something, and then I'll pull out a bunch of protein bars and help them out a little bit. I think if you're doing some discovering, you've got to give back a little bit too. You've got to help people out. Because if you're discovering, you want to find yourself in that predicament in their world. And to find yourself in their world, you've got to get involved. And then you've got to deal with their politics and their struggles and their wars almost. Not literally, but, you can't have one without the other. And you've got to help out a ton. I mean, you have the capacity to do it. And when you're discovering things, you only discover things once. And most likely I'm only going to go to these countries once. Not with Afghanistan, but I'm going back someday. But, when you're doing that, you might as well do a bloody good job straight away.
Well,
and you might as well do everything you can whilst you're there.
Would you say that there may have been a similar mentality to your ancestors, let's say in the British Empire, who went to these places, and they may have had a similar experience going there, meeting the natives, but then, you know what, why don't we build a school? Or why don't we build a railroad? Or, and from there just kind of started elevating. So how do you balance out, because again, you were talking before about wanting to more or less leave places how they are. What would be a good balance for you of doing good service and helping people out, while at the same time not creating a situation where now they're dealing with other things, which, again, people could argue whether that's good or bad, depending on how you see, civilization, culture, but where would be the right balance for you there?
Well, I would say it's to help them ensure the rights of self-sustainability. So, for example, the UN or these other NGOs or anything like that go to these countries, and they basically give them Western food and Western clothes and so on, and influence the culture, which I don't agree with, because they're keeping them on life support. They're not giving them the means to actually produce their own livelihood. Same with Afghanistan. They would, give them food and everything, and give them, a vapid version of Islam. But at the same time, they wouldn't give them the tools to build their own civilizations and continue on their path. So if I was to go there, I'm not going to go and basically, give them tons of, soy food and everything. I'm basically going to go there and go, if you're starving, here's some food and here's some money to basically buy the equipment you need to actually, collect rainwater to drink, or, to maybe start a farm or something. So I printed off some text and some diagrams that would work in South Sudan, basically. If they could read it, they'll be able to read it, but if not, they can probably follow the diagrams. And, they can get these basic tools, and then from there, actually, do some basic farming, because South Sudan's very good with, it has very good arable lands. But at the same time, loads of people aren't farming because they're being kept topped up by the UN with free food, and that comes and goes, So I'm going to give them the means of production almost. I'm not a communist, but I think that's kind of fitting at this point. Absolutely.
No, I think that's a great way to go about this. And I want to ask you about Sudan, specifically the Sudan-Egyptian border area. So what exactly is the history of this border area, and what are you specifically planning to... So you said that you want to make a village there, and you want to...
Yes.
Yeah, so give us the skinny on what exactly is going on there.
Yes, so for the people at home, there's two countries. There's Sudan and then there's South Sudan. South Sudan's the one I'm going to. It's like a little newest country of the world, and I'm going to go walking there and basically shitpost in real life and help people out, stuff like that, basically. Fine balance. But then the difference between Sudan's a very Muslim country, and so is Egypt to some degree. And when the British divided the line and drew the borders, basically, they went back and corrected it a few years later and basically said, we've got this one patch of land and this other patch of land. One side can have one patch of land and one side can have the other. You decide amongst yourselves. And they basically just left, which I think is hilarious to some degree. But they all want this one patch of land that basically has loads of oil and has a sea border and all this other stuff. It's great. But then the one piece of land no one wants is Bird Real, and because it's just a desert, it's dry, so no one lays claim to it. So it's the last piece of land in the entire world that's habitable, and no one's claimed.
Wow.
Now, some people have gone there and stuck up a flag and went, this is mine. But to be recognised by the UN or by other governments anyway, you need to have a permanent population and some sort of economy. Now, if I went there and brought enough equipment, let's say, some sort of water collection system, and then put a small little shack in there. Not a shack, but I built something basically. I built a house, a very small house, but sustainable. And then I lay out some sort of map, and I have solar panels, and I have Starnet for internet, and I live there for 3 months.
Yeah, the Elon Musk
Yeah,
internet.
Starlink, my bad. Yes, not Starnet.
You should get in touch
yes,
with Elon Musk, by the
Skynet,
way.
actually.
Well, I mean, that's we'll see.
I need to get bigger.
Yet to come.
I mean, you could probably get in touch with Elon Musk. I mean, you're a pretty famous
I will
guy as
try.
far as
I will try. I think with South Sudan and then my other trip after that, I can't reveal it, but let's say it's going to be bigger than Afghanistan, to put it lightly. But when I do all that, I think I should have everyone's attention, and when I have that, I can really get down to work then. But yeah, I do want to have internet there. I want to have a little greenhouse set up, and it's going to be very hard to do. Don't get me wrong. I've done a lot of research. A good 50 hours of writing up stuff and researching and looking at papers. But
could we take a guess right now of where you're going? Like the chat and Geo and myself. Let's see if we can guess. So
well, I'll give you a hint.
Okay.
So think of my motivations as a Christian and a Catholic, and let's say I want to help out people who have been in bad recent situations in the country I've been to. Maybe I've got unfinished business somewhere, stuff like that.
Interesting.
Unfinished business. Well, you were in Afghanistan before, so that could be unfinished business going back into Afghanistan and the Taliban's there. That may be one thing, but maybe North Korea, that could be another. I don't know.
Well, I don't know. The first Afghanistan won. That's ridiculous. I would, that would be nice, but I probably shouldn't do that anyway. But I wouldn't go back anytime soon anyway. And then with North Korea, I don't like it because there's tours basically. It's very regimented. So if I was going to go to North Korea, it'll be on my own terms, and I've got a plan for that anyway.
What are some of the most dangerous places in the world? I'm just trying to think.
London. That's right. I would. If I was going to go to the most dangerous place in the world, in terms of environment, Antarctica. Like I would just die there.
Wait, before you die, you know what you should do? You should go to Antarctica and you should try to get into those holes that the Nazis created with the UFOs.
I'll go to Hyperborea.
Yes, Agartha, exactly.
Agartha.
I would go. What I want to do is go to Antarctica, somehow get to one of those, a research bases, and just knock on the door in normal clothes. I'll quickly take off my shirt, hide it. I'll just knock on. I'll have like a teapot or something. I'll be like, "Oh hi, I got a bit lost and I was on my way to Portugal or something. Weather's a little bit iffy, isn't it? Can I come in, please? A little bit freezing." And they'll freak out, and I'll just gaslight them, film it, and reveal.
You could say you make the wrong turn at Albuquerque. You could be the Bugs Bunny of the real world. But I don't know, it is interesting with Admiral Byrd's diary, supposedly, if that's not a forgery, but also the supposed newspaper article he did, I think it was in Argentina, or it was somewhere around that area, where he talked about there being this threat of these Nazis going to the South Pole, and they have all this advanced UFO technology, and we're all doomed. Yeah. And then you had the Foo Fighters around Washington, D.C. over the White House. Before that, even, you had the Battle of Los Angeles, which some people say are the Japanese, and then others have claimed that it's actually these UFO crafts that were causing all kinds of mischief there. And then we've had subsequent occurrences of various UFOs being spotted in the same shape and description as the former, being able to go underwater. That was something that was documented back in the 50s, if not earlier. And now we recently had that Navy footage of that UFO where they were also talking about them going under the water. So, I don't know, there's some weirdness going on there. This is a bit of a tangent, but what are your thoughts on what exactly is going on here?
Oh, that was actually all me, but no one would believe me, I forgot to film it all, but I do believe... I don't believe, the government's very truthful, and I do believe in the whole deep state thing, because put yourself in these people's situations, pretend you're a complete psychopath, like absolutely the worst person, all you want is power, fame, money, all this stuff. And you get to a certain point where you just have too much money, like Bill Gates, what you don't need another $1 billion, you're fine at this point. So what do you do after that? You go for power, basically, and you go to break every rule you can, because that's what exemplifies power, breaking normal rules, basically. And then from there, you want to establish control. So, it's good for you being in power, but what about your family? Because you care about your people, because you're that narcissistic. So you would establish, say, some sort of means of control over a population or a society or something like that. And that's why you have lobbyists. That's why you have the CIA, the FBI, international banking in general. Their systems are corrupted to hell, and you see all that stuff. So I think these are sightings that are byproducts of secret technologies research, these mini projects that these people are doing to secure their futures in power. So, for example, let's say this UFO technology was probably done by some rich billionaire, trillionaire, or some crazy scientist, or some war-hungry general who just wanted to build something to push the limits and see if he could really do it. They have the potential to do terrible things, and I think they just want to push the limits of it and see if they actually could, and have the power in their hands, where they have the capacity to.
Well, to quote Tradical, and he left Twitter, the world makes a lot of sense when you realize that literal demons run it. So that's my belief. This is a podcast against the Antichrist.
And I also would definitely put I would put the German National Socialist Party in that category as well.
Well, I don't know, Lev. We could debate about that.
No, see, that's very funny how them you leave off the hook. That's very telling. But anyway,
Lev, they were destroyed from the outside. That should tell you something. Anyways, I wanted to ask you about.
They acted like animals.
Lev, don't derail me now.
They acted like animals.
Debated this. They've acted like animals, yes.
Worse than animals, because they actually had an understanding of what they were doing. It wasn't like people who just do wrong without knowing.
Well,
that
that's
wrong.
debatable whether who at the top, whether he knew what was going on or not. Or anyways,
at least Gio, at least try to be like your like your Italian friend. You're not even at that level. You've gotten lower than that. But anyway,
what Italian friend? What are you talking about?
Your Moo friend. Moo.
Oh yeah,
Moo.
okay.
At least you could be like him.
Well, I joke. Anyways, before we discuss the merits of the NSDP, I wanted to ask you about dark tourism, because as a man who seeks adventure and thrill, like your British ancestors of yore, do you think that people, like you were talking about how you're doing this ostensibly for charity, but do you feel that there is an element of excitement or sort of lack of intrigue with the sort of mundane everydayness of life now? The fact that the world is sort of closed off because of the you-know-what for the past 2 years, that there's just this impending sense of inertia. Do you feel like why people are attracted to going to, I don't know, the core in Chernobyl, or going to people that have gone into North Korea, like for example, Mencius Mole Bugman on Twitter, he went to North Korea, or do you feel like there is some level of, there's a depth within man that wishes to sort of go to the extreme? Like how would you describe it in your own words? Like what do you get out of it by doing this?
Well, I think it's linked to culture to some degree, so it's kind of in my blood to go exploring with this type of stuff. I don't see. It does happen in other cultures that were not explorers back in the day, like with India and everything. But I do see the occasional Indian man on YouTube going to wacky countries and doing some crazy things, but it's not as prevalent with Western people. So I think it's always a bit of a culture thing and also a mundane thing. Because when you're as comfortable as you are, in the West as any person, because life is easy in the West. You can work a 9-to-5 job and basically save up $2 million by the time you're 50 if you really aren't materialistic and so on, from investing, and so all that stuff. So I think after a while you just want to roll the dice a little bit, and if you die you don't exactly know it. If you go there and do something good, you died enjoying yourself and doing something noble. I think there's a chance. It comes down to a question, actually. Would you rather just live in safety all your life for 90 years, or would you rather live a very exciting life for 45 years? I would definitely pick 45, because otherwise I'd be miserable.
Yeah, exactly. I think that, and also, like, it seems that people are encouraged, I guess, to just Oh God, no. Sorry, my cat is trying to pull out my webcam cord.
Go to the cat. Bring up the cat.
I'm trying to grab her, but she's Gertrude. She doesn't like. She'll like lay on your arm for like an hour till it's numb, but she likes it when you pet her, but not. Let me try to grab her. Actually, but no, it does seem that Oh, there you are, Gertrude. There you are.
Aww.
Oh, she's a cute one.
Oh yeah, she's a runt of the litter. But my other cat Hildy's bigger. But no, it does seem that this sort of inner impulse. A lot of people have talked about it. You know, a lot of wise men. I'm not going to mention the meme philosopher. You know, speaking of Italians. But I do feel that it's in a sense travel itself. There was this great thread once I was reading, where travel itself has become degraded. It's become another sort of bourgeois commodity. It's become, you know, the British, like, or your neck of the woods. Here in Canada, we go to Florida. In Britain, I guess you go to India or Bali or wherever. It seems that travel has become a very, like, safe, placid escapism, whereas travel before was sort of a noble goal of the aristocratic classes.
Like the Great Tour, that's what it was called.
Great Tour,
right?
yes, that's a good one.
Exactly, yes.
And I feel like, what is the British attitude towards travel nowadays? I mean, of course, everyone's on lockdown or whatever.
It's so cringe. It's like
Cringe.
you take your 2 shots of poison, and then you go to Spain basically, and you get a lovely tan, and you lie on the beach. Yeah. It's so hot, and then you go back to your 9 to 5 behind a desk with your your boss shouting down on you, and then you repeat that for 70 years until you're dead. With me, I kind of think, what. It's the same as exercising. You exercise, at the same time it's suffering. It's not enjoyable most of the time. Exercising, especially running when you first start out, it's terrible. It feels bad. Your heart's beating and everything, but you still do it because afterwards you realize it's good for yourself, and you find out something about yourself, and you basically get a clearer head and get new ideas to some degree. Expand your mind almost. Exercise does. Same thing with traveling. Instead of it being some sort of fast food addiction, like traveling to Spain, going on adventures and walking through wilderness and having very insecure moments where you feel vulnerable and confused and don't have any security. That's enriching almost, and I feel like loads of people don't understand the idea that safety is not always a good thing. The best people I've ever met are people higher up in the military, and I've met a lot of them because of this experience. And they've basically had guns pointed at them. They've had bullets shot into their shoulders and so on. But they're the most light-hearted, funny people ever. But the people who are clearly safe in their little hidey hole of society are offended by everything. I feel like you need to expand your mind a little bit and pop down to one of these countries, but always prepare.
There you go.
Before I pop into one of those countries, I'm getting as close as an experience, virtually speaking, by doing Break the Rules, because since I'm living in New York City, I'm around, I'm the chair of the Art and Technology Committee at the National Arts Club, which is this, very high society place in New York City in Manhattan. And one of the people who were receiving an award there from my committee was actually Neil deGrasse Tyson, because you mentioned him earlier. So you can imagine like the kind of place this is, but at the same time, the great
Lev
thing
knows multiple people who have been on the flight logs, by the way. Sorry.
But at the same time, it's been a very interesting experience because our committee also brings in people like Graham Hancock, for instance. Who are you familiar with Graham Hancock?
Briefly, yes. I haven't met him personally.
Well, you're in England, so maybe we can arrange that. But he talks. It would definitely. Yeah, I would love to do that. But he also Rupert Sheldrake. That's another person who lives around London, I believe. And he talks about. I invited him to the NAC. He went there. It was a great time. And he talks a lot about morphic resonance. He basically talks about a lot of the spiritual aspects of life, and he's a Christian himself as well. He even went to India and went to a kind of like it was a Christian, but it was like a Indian version of Christianity, as it were. A retreat. It's not a retreat. It's like a temple, but it's like a temple where people meditate, but it's not Buddhist, it's not Hindu, it's specifically Christian.
Interesting. Okay.
So I'll connect the two of you later. I think you'll get along really well. But anyway, the point that I'm getting to here is that in New York, in the belly of the beast, here still we can actually bring in people who think outside the black cube of Saturn and are able to infuse certain ideas into the world that I think are needed. And I am hearing from people who I know that, yes, like all this cancel culture stuff, it's gotten too far, and, everybody's going nuts, and people are still afraid. They're still afraid of speaking out, but I think slowly, and I know Gio would disagree with me, but I do think that people like Barry Weiss, for instance, and people who are part of organizations like FAIR, they're the ones who are actually doing something about it. They're the ones who are actually freeing up a lot of the fence-sitting people, especially because their whole issue is dealing with the kids not being indoctrinated with critical race theory in schools. Like, that's their whole big thing in New York City. And so they're talking with a lot of parents whose kids go to a lot of prestigious schools who don't want their kids to, be brainwashed. So that's, I think, how it starts. So I'm just giving you a little bit of a glimmer of hope for some change to come about. But as far as Graham Hancock, though, last thing before Super Chats I wanted to get to, he talked about this idea of there being a cataclysm, and since you're Christian, you've read your Bible and the whole, the events of the flood and all that. Obviously, yes. If I look at it very critically, I would say, there's so many different species of animals. Oh, there we go. There's so many different species of animals on Earth that you're not going to be able to fit all of them in there. So my interpretation of what that was, assuming there were advanced civilizations, because that's what Graham Hancock assumes, assuming there were Atlantis and whatever advanced civilizations back there that had a very high degree of technology, maybe 2x2 meant DNA. Maybe they carried the DNA of some of these animals that they later on ended up replicating. Now that's kind of looking at it very, yes, exactly, very out there. Yeah. But it does make more sense than literally taking all the species to be carried over there. Just think of the amount of species that exist and that would exist on dry land. So that's at least my version of it. But the other reason why I mentioned the whole survivor thing is I think you may also be going in the footsteps of people who, after the cataclysm, if we assume this is what happened, they ended up coming to places like Egypt, like South America, and they ended up bringing civilization to those places, at least according to the legends of those.
Are you saying that Miles is a neo-conquistador? Is that what you're saying?
Well, conquistador implies conquering, and from what I understand, that's not what they did. From what I understand, they actually went there to spread knowledge and wisdom to the people there to then help the people out, and I think that's something that Miles is doing, and I think using both the faith that you have with Christianity as well as just your general kindness of being a kind-hearted human being. If I was to believe in any reality that may have existed back then I would assume there would have been people like Quetzalcoatl or whoever you could say that went to these areas with the same kind-heartedness, because that appears to be the way that the native peoples described these visitors that came there and brought them these various systems that they ended up utilizing. So who knows? Well,
when you would look at it, they would be viewed as like a malevolent force. I mean, these white people coming to your shore, these tall monsters in steel. It's very, when you do, like there was that, it's funny how everyone beefs on Mel Gibson in Hollywood, but he did do one of the more accurate sort of portrayals of that with Apocalyptico.
Apocalypto.
Apocalypto, sorry, yeah.
It's a great movie.
It is, no, but that's, it's funny like how we view history through such a myopic lens of our own sort of present understanding, right? I know this is like a basic point, but it seems that like there really is sort of what even Graham Hancock says, there's like a cultural amnesia going on where the history is like actively suppressed or it's seen through this lens of like pure evil when you don't really look at the grand sort of scheme of history in toto. Like it's like the British, for instance. I mean, from what I've heard, like having a lot of friends in the origin of my country in Canada, it seems that there is like this pervasive attempt to absolutely destroy the notion of Britishness through their history, through the education system to the minds of youth. I mean, I don't know what your experience has been, Miles, in terms of
Oh yeah,
the
absolutely.
education you've gotten with your own history. Because I mean, if you're like, I hate as much as we beef on Anglos, especially in the esoteric corners of the internet, far right. We talk about how the Anglos did everything to destroy us, man. The Anglos brought us
So
liberalism,
they're
but it's
so
like,
Anglophobic.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's Anglophobic.
yeah, that's you know,
But if
we're,
but if you're British, you have this tapestry of being like literally one of, if not the greatest empire in the world,
yeah,
and it's
I have
like,
absolutely
yeah,
I have complete pride in being British. I'm never going to apologise for it. If someone goes, "Oh, why do you renounce your ancestors?" I'm like, absolutely not. No, they got me here. I'm very happy for it. Obviously, everyone screws up. You're human, but at the same time, so is the people. So is me. I screwed up a few times, like everyone, and my future generations are going to screw up.
Well,
Who cares? Really?
there is also a great quote. Remember that you are an Englishman and have consequently won first prize in the lottery of life. You know who that's from?
No,
Cecil Rhodes.
I think amazing. Good stuff.
no, Cecil Rhodes was a New World Order glowy, so that's. But what has your been experience though with the British education system? Is it is just as abysmal as people on 4chan say it is, or?
I think my education was a little bit better, but it seemed a little bit soulless. It was just kind of it was like, oh, we were once like an empire, and then we did some really bad stuff, and we should be ashamed of it. And then now everything's better because like we have less influence. I'm like, no, I miss the influence. It was great having some influence of the world. The whole point of the world is to leave your mark to some degree. That's why I'm doing an interview, to raise some awareness, do some good, leave a good mark. And at the same time, there was no pride in being British. It was almost fearful to say this type of stuff, because people don't understand that sometimes nationalism can be a good thing to some extent. You have to have some pride in your culture. But at the same time, the culture had been destroyed in Britain most of the time. So, the whole identity has been replaced with consumerism and basically just cringe Western things in general, through globalization. So no one has anything to be proud of in general. But when I went to Afghanistan, flags were everywhere. People were parading around. People ironed their uniforms very well. That's why you've got so much pride in the military, because there's actually that sentiment that's upheld. But in the everyday public, absolutely not. When I look on Google Maps in Syria, there's flags everywhere and people waving Syrian flags. In the UK, if you do that, some skinny soy boy libtard cuck will just punch you, and then you'll just deck them. But
they have the Syrian flag in the handle. They wear the what's it called? I keep forgetting the name.
They also have They also have the Palestinian flag in the handle. Don't forget that.
Oh
too.
yeah, that
yes.
They have the scarf. It's the kafaya, I think. Is that what it's
something
called?
like that? Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. No, but it's really weird, this sort of communist third worldism that it's like, but it's funny though. Another question now that I'm thinking of the sort of British system, do you fear the sort of persecution that would come about from the various hate speech laws in Britain? I know people have Redditors have absolutely lied and slandered you. They say that you're a member of the BNP and all this crap.
I don't know what BNP is.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Wait, what is BNP? What is BNP? Because
the British National Party, the Mark Collette. I think he was involved in that. But no,
I'm part of no party.
Yeah,
these people are pathetic because they have no identity, so they try and categorize things into little groups so they can feel more secure about their own ideals. They can't stand out.
No, but that's what they do. That's what they do with their own groups as well. That's why they have all the hashtags and the pronouns and all that, because that is. And again, if you feel a certain way, I'm not going to hold it against you. But to push that off as this is who I am, this is my identity, there's a lacking there. At least I feel like the identity should be based more on what you do, as opposed to.
General.
Yeah, exactly.
And also, what is your general background? Because you tend to have a higher accent, but would you say you come from the working class or the middle class or
below?
Yeah.
Way below. So what happened was, I'm going to be straight up with you guys. I saw a ton of comments going, "Oh, rich kid in Afghanistan." I was laughing my ass off.
Yeah, I was going to say rich kid in Afghanistan. Yeah.
Yeah. I grew up on benefits basically, which is the equivalent of welfare with you guys.
Yeah.
My parents never had a job. Yeah, never had a job. Single mother too, so never had a dad to IVF. We literally had so little money. We would go into these bins in a store called Iceland, like Walmart, and we would scavenge through the bins with some other homeless people doing the same thing to pick out recently thrown out frozen food because it's still good because it's only one day past its sell-by date. And we would spend 2 hours every single Tuesday and Thursday doing that to get free food. And then from the age of 14 onwards, I always had a 16-hour part-time job at a hairdresser's whilst I studied. And then, I went through a ton of abuse in my household. I always worked. I never received any money. Often I would go without food, physical and mental abuse, very bad stuff. So at the end of the day, I am definitely not rich by any means. I am not contacting my family. So I would say right now I'm working class as myself. But with my accent, it's only a good accent because I realized at 14 years old, if I sound like this, I sound like I'm going to stab someone and no one's going to hire me. So I'm not putting
I'm going to shank you, mate. Yeah.
Oh, bloody hell, mate, I'll fucking slam you, so I don't want to be that. But I'm not putting on this voice now, but at 12 years old, I thought, I'm going to surround myself with decent people and, try and refine my accents. And it got to the point after 1 year that I actually changed my accent on my own, so I don't end up working at a chip shop because I sound like this. Like I would have got into investment banking if I walked in going, oh bloody hell, mate, your investment has gone up 9.12%, which is the S&P 500 average. And if I say that, it's possible. It sounds so sophisticated. I had to change myself. So. No, I'm not posh in any single way. I just know how to behave as a decent human person. And if you offended, I change my accent.
Wait, where in England are you living right now? You mentioned it earlier.
Yeah, Loughborough. It's north of Leicester and south of Nottingham, so it's kind of dead centre if you get England on a map and just put a pin on there.
My good friend Matthew the Stout on Twitter, another amazing fellow artist. He lives in Croydon, I think he lives in Croydon. Yeah.
I'm very sorry to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah. But no, that's funny you mentioned that because in a way, I think your story is reflective of so many different sort of issues and epochs within Britain itself, both contemporary and also within, I would say, the 20th century. It's really crazy. It goes to like that recent Adam Curtis documentary, although he gets a lot of points wrong. How the British of the post-empire period is sort of like this very demure and defeated people who want to like maintain their sense of their past, but at the same time, the new Britain has left a lot of people behind. Like imagine this, a good British son being left to poverty, to the welfare state, but to rise above that and to do something that I would say is noble and heroic, to experience the world. I mean, to me, that was sort of the classic story of Britannia. But now it seems that people, I think when they look at you and they look at your accent, they think, like you said, a snobby British kid. But the reality of it is actually more of the spirit of what Britain was than anything else. I
completely agree. I mean, I can understand where they were coming from, though, because, the media said it, and I guess fair enough, it's an easy scapegoat, but you're right, the truth is a lot more complicated. And at the same time, I don't really care if I die in South Sudan, because if I die doing a good thing, I don't care if the ENTM mocks me, because if I'm in heaven because I did some good stuff looking down upon the world, I think I've inspired at least a few people to basically do the same things as me, do some charity work, and I've helped some people already. That's all I care about.
Amazing.
Yeah, I just don't really care. If my body's unlively once again, I think that'll be funny in heaven. Post the what's it called, the rest in piss, you will not be missed. Hack watch.
Best has to spit.
Well, I think they should have a good internet, good Wi-Fi there in heaven, right?
Well, I actually have good Wi-Fi. Apparently, you have a live stream to hell, according to Dante in heaven. So 24 hours, you can see the damned suffer. Anyways,
you can look upon the earth.
Yeah, I think that is. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why in a lot of different
look at that.
experiences, Oh yeah, she's all over the place. I have a surprise for you. I think we're wrapping up because
Ooh.
it's about
And then super chats. So, but
and then
yeah.
before super chats, let me send it. So me and Lev are both artists. He's an animator. I'm a fine artist, and I'm getting a bit better into portraiture. I did this of you. And I will share it on Twitter after, so if you could retweet it all.
Gio, post it in the After Hours chat. I accidentally have After Hours chat as the default chat, not BTR chat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
After Hours accidentally, okay.
Post it right here.
So I will at you on Twitter as well, and well, I don't think you have an Instagram, but it's here we go. I did this of you recently. I call it Miles of Arabia. So is it loading? It's loading.
Yeah.
There
Man, look at that. That is beautiful.
Oh, mate, thank you. Oh,
Yeah.
man, that's taken hours. That's stunning.
I had some help from Matthew as well. He gave me some corrections, like the nose had to do a bit more work on it. But I liked how it turned out. It didn't take too long. But
that's good.
that's charcoal and white charcoal. So yeah.
Mate, you gave me a nice jawline. You gave me a non-receding hairline. I do appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. I'm glad you like it. But I wanted to put the kiffa scarf on you. I thought that was fitting. It spiced it up a bit. So
and actually, I believe in Islam there is a hat similar to the Santa hat that some of the imams wear. You know the one I'm talking about? It's like
not the
red.
kufi, the other one.
Yeah, I saw it on Memory TV, so I have to take a look at it. See.
I want to go on that show someday so bad.
Oh, you think you'd probably go?
Well, no, it's not a show. Okay, so what Memory TV
It's
is?
a network.
No. Memory TV is just a compilation of various Muslim shows from Egypt, from wherever.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not a...
It's a lot of, but they have like similar people that go on. Like, as God is my witness, I'll give you a million beatings. Like, that was good. Oh, man.
And there's one guy who kind of looks like George W. Bush. Do you know who I'm talking about? One of the imams here. Right? He kind of looks like him. Let me see if I can find him. But I am going to be wrapping it up with the Super Chats right now. So I'm going to be looking at a couple of things. But here are the Super Chats. We got a lot of Super Chats today. Thank you guys so much for doing this. This is going to help BTR grow exponentially. So here we go. And also, patreon.com/breaktherules. Become a patron today. And you are going to get beautiful stuff, including magnets. So if you want a magnet... I don't know. Part of me wants to always say, if you want to get like a magnet of the head of our guest today, so like with the Santa hat and stuff like that, but that really depends on certain circumstances. But anyway, let me show you the magnet right now. So if you become a $20 patron, you are going to get a beautiful magnet designed by my father, Alexander Polyakov. Here, let me show you the original magnet for the $20. So these are going to be random. So these are going to be random magnets that you can get made out of high quality wood. Here you see like maple, mahogany, ashwood, cherry. So this moth over here, this is for all the Brittany Venti fans out there. So my father is an amazing artist. And when you get a $30 patronage, you are going to get a very beautiful print from Giovanni Pennacchietti right here. Let me load up that print as well so you guys could all see that in action. Here it is, I believe. This is the Patreon print, that MP4. There we go. Okay, hold on. Let me scroll down. Here it is.
There you go.
So here you could see Gio in action making this beautiful print from the TFW No GF series. Watch him go. And it is done.
That's sped up, by the way.
That is... No, it's not. That's how fast Gio
No, it's
actually
the real
is.
speed. Sorry, kayfabe.
I think I'll slow down, actually.
And lastly, but not leastly, for $50... Oh, and I completely forgot to mention, for the regular patronage, you are going to get a lot of good stuff. You are going to get access to the audio of the episodes after it comes out. You also get 25% off an astrology reading from my main man, Michael Scotto, who we're going to have another astrology stream hopefully very soon. And I still have to follow up, by the way, for the people who are watching this to do the extra stream. But anyway, you're also going to get... let's see, what are you also going to get? You're also going to get access to the secret parts of the Discord. We're going to have Patreon-only streams coming up once again soon. We're going to do some after hours as well. So a lot of good stuff, but finally you are going to get, for the $50 patronage, you are going to get the custom magnet. So whatever design of a magnet you want to get, that is what you're going to get. And here is an example of the dragon magnet that my father, not a magnet, this is actually just like a full piece that my father made in honor of Styx Hexenhammer 666, who's going to be on tomorrow, 3 p.m. with none other than Mike Cernovich, and Health Nut as well. So look out for that. That's going to be a very interesting episode. We're going to be talking about plant medicine, ayahuasca, metaphysical stuff. So as somebody said, it's going to be a very Gnostic episode for those who are like...
Oh, great. Not another one of those.
Not another one of those.
Oh.
There's nothing wrong with trying to discover what all of this is about. Everybody's got a different path. Anyway, these are all the things that you're going to get as a patron. And now, finally, we're going to go on to the Super Chat. So... Super Iron Bob, $5. When you drop a drop of water into your vodka, you don't notice it. When you cut your vodka with an equal amount of water, you get shite vodka.
So true.
There we are.
Yeah.
And,
so true. Schizo post right there.
And another one from Super Iron Bob, who is, by the way, a $50 patron. Another Super Chat from Super Iron Bob, $5. Lev is our local anarcho-Russo for the Russians. Thank you very much, Super Iron Bob. Yes, so, Miles, just so you understand, my whole thing here on BTR is I'm trying to deprogram all the people who have been psyoped by the Russian government. That's the main thing that I do here.
Yes.
So,
you mentioned vodka, so I assumed he was Russian.
yes, exactly.
Well, Lev is this agent of a certain other intelligence agency, so...
Oh, Lord Geo. Okay, next.
Mossad. Oh,
next.
did I say that?
More like happy. Anyway.
Mossad, man. Oh my God. You and the puns. That's terrible.
Next. Okay, we got Alex Redmond, €4.99. Richard Hanenia posted documentation showing that the U.S. Army tried to impose a soy-based diet on Afghans in his pinned thread. I'm going to have to check that out. That's
Well, it's like how the Israelis in Ramallah during the Intifada, they took over the TV stations and they posted nonstop porn over the TV stations. That's a true story. E. Michael Jones was famous for in that interview talking about it in Libido Dominandi. So that is, again, I wouldn't put it past the sort of coalition forces to like give them a diet of pure soy. I don't know. That's kind of that I wouldn't put it past them. Put it that way.
And next we got $20 from Super Iron Bob. Once again, Super Iron Bob knocking it out of the park today. So Super Iron Bob says, spiritual hygiene is necessary armor to the cognito-info hazards of reality and contemplation of deep ideas. These were limited to the ascetics of old. Now the internet shows to all. How do we educate a public to survive this? Yeah, I mean, that was the point that I was bringing up earlier. How do we navigate this this whole terrain? I just think there's so much out there, so many questions out there as far as what exactly this is all about. It's difficult for people to just settle on a particular way, because one person says this, another person says that. So I don't know, what's a good way of navigating a lot of this knowledge, you'd say, Miles?
I would just say keep yourself busy. Pick something and go with it. I mean, if you don't like it, move on to the next thing. Like, for example, I've got a book deal. I may have a movie deal, or documentary deal, sorry. Yeah, spoilers. Then I've got several other trips. I'm working a job. I'm doing several other things at the same time. People want to meet with me all the time. I'm not bragging, but at the same time, it means I'm constantly running around, so I don't usually have time to stop and get depressed. Like, for example, if I stay in my room for 48 hours doing nothing, it's nice to relax for a day, but after 2 days, I just want to, jump out of the building. I actually want to, have purpose and have drive to do something. When we were cavemen, we would always have something small to do, and then we would only have a small amount of downtime to recover. Same thing should here. Don't expose yourself to too much pleasure. Introduce small hardships like cold showers and so on.
Oh, I love
and
cold
slowly
showers.
build up. Same, absolutely. Getting's never been better. And then you slowly build up greater and greater things, basically. So start small, punish yourself, realize it's good overall for yourself, and build up discipline, and then you can seek that knowledge that way through experiences.
And it does bring satisfaction. For me personally, though, doing the cold showers and also doing the breathing techniques starts the whole Kundalini process in the back, which the Hindus talk about, and the third eye thing and all that. So it's interesting. That's kind of what I mean by seeing what other paths are out there to get information, because there is, and I know that there is this term prelist. People say like for false deification or whatever, just for a false sense of what it means to have godhood. But it is still quite something when you sit down, close your eyes, and see a cross in front of you. There is something when you look at like the paintings and various depictions of how people saw the stuff. I think that there is some communication apparatus inside of our bodies where we can access certain things of that nature.
Yeah, I get that. I think there's other spiritual senses that science hasn't really figured out and never actually will. Because if you quantify it, you kill it, really.
Yeah, I guess you can. Although people have been trying. There was I don't want to go on a tangent. I do have to finish off the super chats, but real quick, there was a video I saw recently about how the people who were in a near-death experience situation, who were even in the hospital, how they said that they were actually very, very lucid and they felt very free during the time when they were officially counted as dead. Officially, when the amount of brain activity that was going on would be way too little for any kind of cognition, let alone this very intense cognition that they described having existing, So in that, and in that way,
maybe it's just some,
well,
maybe it's just some. It could be just some stoner doctor kind of sneaking magic mushrooms.
They tried that back in the day. The new atheist with like the God helmet thing. That was like a big piss off. But but yeah, we'll continue with the super chat.
By the way, to Nico, who was saying that I'm not asking the right questions. Look, the only thing that I could do is help out my family, help out my grandma. Do the best that I can there, and then all the other stuff that I focus on. Let's see what happens from there. There's I know that there's a lot of people who like preaching, who like talking about what it means to do good, but do more and say less. That's what I say. And as far as any of the curiosity about what's out there, I don't think there's anything wrong with seeking it out. Anyway, King Salmon Fish, $5. Okay, but if the political discourse of the vast majority is nationalism and socialism as a whole, then what is that? And when everything fails, romance. King Salmonfish is a very interesting dude. There's a video he did about China talking about how because they have a small wee-wee, that's why they're never going to become a strong power. So
well, they're the Han peasantry that was conquered by the noble steppe peoples. So,
Does that mean Africa is very developed since pretty much utopia then?
We have another quote from...
No, because that's the other way. You got to have a penis that's just the right size in order to have a high civilization. If it's too big...
No, Gio. First of all, the Nigerians are kicking the ass of so many people education-wise in the United States. And I'm sure that there's no problem going on there in the bed department either. I can't say. I assume there wouldn't be any problem either way.
Well, isn't Nigeria experiencing a financial turmoil right now? Or
I'm not speaking about Nigeria. I'm speaking about Nigerian migrants to the United States.
Oh, yeah.
They're doing amazingly educational-wise. So that is why, again, people have various assumptions about this and that. But as long as you can attain a certain level of whether it's civilization, education, I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit where you're from. As long as that is able to be attained, as long as you raise kids in the kind of way that I would want my kids to hang out with your kids in the future, then what do I care? That's, I think, the important thing. And anything else is just stupid and just creates unneeded tension. Why do you want to make a fifth column of people who feel like they don't have any dignity? that you rob their dignity by basically saying that because you happen to be this color of skin or because your genetics happen to include people that we find problematic, then we're going to explicitly deem you a certain way from here on in. It's just the stupidest thing in the world. But anyway, one last thing from King Salmonfish. Oh man, we got a couple more. So
Lev, that's self-preservation talking right there.
Gio, I mean, you're here on the stream and you're supporting people who would have, who would have annihilated me.
Listen. I believe. What did a Spencer say? It'll be peaceful, ethnic. It'll be.
I don't understand it. I'm right here. Lev is right here, and
I'm kidding.
Okay.
I'm kidding.
Anyway, another King Salmonfish, $5. I just wanted to give you more money. Cute cat Geo, Christianity trumps whatever Lev said. Redeem the high cringe brother. Well, I appreciate that. Anyway, Super Iron Bob, $5. Don't defame and denounce your ancestors. They're the ones who made you great. Now denouncing your contemporary countrymen, probably for the best.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So next one we have the ABC 123456399 donated $2. BTR against the Antichrist. Yes. Nico 5 ARS, which is fake money, which is Argentinian dollars. So let's see, Argentina
Fake money.
Let's see, I'm gonna do ARS 52 USD. Let's see how that is. I'm not gonna be like Stefan. Well, it's 0.45 United States dollars, which I appreciate. I appreciate the 45 cents. Thank you very much for that. I'm not gonna be like you know who. Anyway. He said, Geo, no one destroyed fascist ARG from the outside. Their Keynesian economics is crap, fell in 10 years by spending it all. That's USA's future. Argentina.
That's a lie. That's a Bolshevik lie right there. That was spread by the Bolsheviks.
This Argentinian guy's grandfather is probably German.
Oh, that's probably true. Well, at least the Falklands should have had the pound, so they would have been saved from. Oh, they would have been saved from their poor Argentinian.
Wait,
dog.
the ABC 123 apparently has given other super chats before that. I don't want to. I guess they're just not coming in here. But anyway, I'm gonna get to those right at the end. And Super Iron Bob, $5. Miles is rich in spirit, more wealthy than most.
I'm pretty retarded, but thank you.
Yeah. Kind of retarded.
I love you. Love you.
I actually have Nico 50 ARS Geo. The reason for the anti-natalism is because the progressives are building the EU into their papacy, and to centralize, they need to be rid of nations.
Yeah, I don't recognize the EU as a thing.
Well, I mean, yeah, I agree. There's a lot of problems going on there. Okay, so finally, let me just go into the chat over here, search for the ABC's name, just so I make sure that I get the chat. Okay, we got that one before. GameCube. This is not a chat, but I want to read it. GameCube, and then, that sign, which means better, the black mecha cube. Next one over here, we have Catholic and Orthodox just get base. That's another one but ABC. Oh man, he's been writing a lot here. Okay, listen, I'm trying to find the super chats. I don't know why they didn't go into the system. I tried my best. I don't see them, but I still appreciate the super chatting. Oh, here, let me try one final thing. If I do ABC, and everybody subscribe, by the way, who's listening to this. I really appreciate all of you. Oh, here we go. Now I found it. Okay. I don't know why these weren't here before, but here they are. So, $5 need life, thank you. And another $5 ask not for a GF, but instead pray for wider shoulders to carry that feel. From the Down Bad Memoirs. There we go. That was the.
I get that. I like that.
That was the last super chat of the day. So, guys, thank you so much for watching. And final thoughts, Miles. I just want to say I really appreciate you being here, speaking with us. There are not a lot of people left on Earth like you, and hopefully you're going to inspire a lot of courage and fortitude from people who are watching this. So I really appreciate what you're doing. Tell us about, by the way, the thing you're doing right now with Sudan.
there was a link that I posted earlier, and I'm going to post it one more time. It's a fundraiser. I donated to the fundraiser. I hope everybody who's watching this donates to the fundraiser as well. So here is the link to the fundraiser, and it says, "Hey all, I'm launching this fundraiser when I'm in South Sudan. Please don't donate." I should have read it.
I trust you. It's okay. It's okay.
Okay. Well, okay.
Okay.
When he's in the Sudan, then he's gonna. Yeah. So there we go. Okay. So, I want to prove my worth first. This is you've already proven your worth by being on BTR. That's okay. That's why I don't know. Okay. So next, this is the big trip we've been speaking about. Read the description. I cannot overhype it. God bless. So there we go. You know what to do. Oh, I posted that in Sushi Bar. My mistake. Let me post it in the right place. Here it is. So yes, everybody. Oh no, I posted it in the wrong place again. Here. Okay. Here it is.
Yeah.
Here's your photo, and here is the link. So everybody, go there right now. Be sure to follow it. And okay, so before you donate, put that as a bookmark. Donate later, right when you're going in there. But once again, patreon.com/breaktherules. I'm posting that. Donate to patreon.com/breaktherules. Support what we do. We bring a lot of people together. And tomorrow, so a very special episode of BTR. Tomorrow, we are going to the root of the various healing plants. And we are going to have, for the first time in BTR, Mike Cernovich. So we're going to have Mike Cernovich coming in. And he's going to be there with Troy Casey, a.k.a. Stack. I want to say Health Nut. I said Stack, but because I thought saying Stack Nut. Because look at this guy. He is stacked to the gills. I mean, look at this, right? You see him over here?
Oh, God.
Oh.
And look at this animation I made. So this is the animation that I made for this. You have the
gorilla mindset there.
Mike Cernovich coming in. Oh, wait, hold on. And you see the tiger? That tiger, that's like from the Russian propaganda video. You know, those the tigers. Like in Russia, we have tigers. And sticks his cat. I don't know why this thing is glitching out. So here, I'm gonna do one better. Oh no!
I feel like my BMI is too high to be in that stream, Lev.
Oh come on, Gio!
It's gonna be you, buddy. It's all right.
What are you talking about, Gio?
Skip.
You get to be with Mike Cernovich. No, this is important.
Oh my God!
This is important.
Quick thing, guys. I just got a notification and someone donated. So if it's part of the stream, thank you, CJ, for £50.
Woo!
Much appreciated, guys.
Ah,
Lovely.
there we are.
Trust me, I don't want to overhype it. Well, I know I can't overhype it, but at the same time, it'll be bigger than Afghanistan. The whole world will be watching. Let's say it's going to. I think it'll be the video of the century to some degree.
Nice.
It will have a place in history. if I make it out anyway, we'll see.
Well, look, I knock on wood. I got the acacia wood over here, knock on wood, and I just want to again say I wish all the very best in health and wealth and spirit to you, and have by the way, a wonderful Christmas. Do they say merry or happy? Because I heard George Michael saying Happy Christmas in that song. Last Christmas I gave you my heart, but the very next, you know what I'm talking about. Is it
Happy Christmas?
Happy Christmas, not Merry Christmas.
Yeah,
even though Merry is more like people say Merry more in Britain in general, right?
Yeah, it's kind of a mixture. A lot of people say Xmas now because they're cringe. And, apparently it saves them half a milliseconds of their wasted lives. Yeah, and then a lot of people say Happy Holidays, and I think, wow, no, thank you. It's Christmas.
So, if there is one war that you are a part of wearing that vest, then you are waging. You're a veteran of the war on Christmas.
Yes, absolutely. I will win it back. Let's say.
Yes.
I was also what's it called? Baptized on the day of Saint Nicholas.
Nice.
So, yeah, pretty much makes sense. And he's a very based individual if you look into the history. So Santa's based, guys.
Although I do notice the hat, it looks like a half elf, half Santa. So it's like a demigod. Yeah. It's like you got the stuff over here. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to put something in and smuggle stuff into the airport. 100%, totally not a joke. But yeah, so it's a perfect cover.
Moral Outrage says, "Rip Joan Rivers." Oh yeah, Rip. Yeah, she was
Rip
very
Joan
funny.
Rivers.
She was very funny.
Oh.
All right, guys, this is the end of the stream. Thank you so much for watching. Let me just find that place on the tab where you actually close this. So thank you so much. Oh, and also follow
wait.
Gio on Twitter, twitter.com.
Oh yeah, I have a bunch of Odyssey exclusives. I was just on the Drug Cult Gang podcast. I'm also gonna come out with some longer videos. So I have a video on my Odyssey on incels, so that's going to be fun. It's about a Vice hit piece. But other than that, yeah, lots of content on my channel, Jenner Productions. And also I want to say this has been amazing, and hopefully Miles on his trip to Sudan, the Lord will keep him and keep him safe, and hopefully you have a lot of donations and you spread a lot of good in this world. You truly are. I think people are going to look back and say that you were a man of history. I truly believe that.
I hope so.
I hope,
yeah.
And also,
I just want to have a really funny Wikipedia page, but thank you.
And also, lastly, youtube.com/Lev Polyakov. I finally got the office in order, so as soon as I finish off the NFT I've been working on this long amount of time. Gio, remember Muscles? So Muscles is almost done.
Yeah.
There's a lot of additions in that. You'll see what I'm talking about. A lot of interesting things. And next, follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/LevPo, LEVPO. I know a lot of people got kicked off of Twitter recently with that whole ban wave. And again, like RIP Joel Davis's Twitter account. I've been in touch with Joel. Hopefully we're going to do a stream soon with him and Styx back when Styx gets to the United States. We'll have a longer amount of time to be able to do it. I appreciate having people like Joel on, because even though I disagree with him on so many different things, the fact that he is able to come in and have a conversation, have a back and forth, means that people are paying attention and people are being given different perspectives to consider. And that's how we learn. If we're not doing that, then we're coming to blows. And I don't want to come to blows with anybody. So even though that may be a test of courage or strength or whatever, I prefer to keep things peaceful as much as I can. So anyway, with that, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Be sure to subscribe. Once again, patreon.com/breaktherules. Become a patron. Mwah! Good night, everybody.